One of the neatest things, I like demonstrating to people how powerful this stuff is so they can see for themselves.
Yeah.
So here's what you do if you just want to have a quick demonstration. Get yourself maybe 9 or 12 essential fatty acids and take them all at once. And let them sit in your stomach for a little bit, let the fats break out of the gel and go into your digestive system. And then see if French fries sound good to you. And I guarantee you, once you get a big jolt of fat into your system, essential fatty acid fat, good fat, you will not be able to eat the French fries. Now your body is constantly using essential fatty acids, so you're going to feel like French fries a few hours later. But just doing it one time will be enough of a demonstration to show you how powerful nutritional supplementation is for weaning yourself off of the crappy stuff. My favorite thing about essential fatty acids is it makes your skin nice and soft. Now, I've been in the skincare business for a long time. One of the things about skin that most people don't recognize is your skin should never be dry. Let me tell you something. Almost everybody has a problem with dry skin. There are billions of dollars spent on moisturizers in this country which do nothing. The moisturizers don't moisturize the skin. They just wax a coating of wax or oil on top of your skin. But you shouldn't need a moisturizer because human skin is not supposed to be dry. As soon as you start taking essential fatty acids, you notice that your skin isn't as dry. The best thing about essential fatty acids for women is one of the classic signs of EFA deficiency, of essential fatty acid deficiency, is menstrual cramps. When women get on essential fatty acids, within 2 cycles their menstrual cramps disappear. And this is something that happens across the board. And even better, and that's a good demonstration. That's a powerful demonstration for a woman who's had cramps all her life. All of a sudden you get her on EFAs, she doesn't have cramps. But even better, when she takes a month off of her EFAs because she gets all cocky and says, I don't get cramps anymore, guess what? The cramps come back. That's how powerful the connection is between these physical manifestations of ill health and nutritional deficiencies.
So these are hormonal. Does it work the same for men and women?
Absolutely.
I mean, does it work in the right respective ways?
Heck yes. Men make hormones too. These are, see, here's how hormone works. You have a cell, right? Think of a little circle like you saw in biology class. It's not really a little circle, it's a blob, but think of their little circle like you saw in biology class. Your little circle on the outside of a cell has little spaces. Those are called receptors. And the way a hormone works is a hormone will sit in one of those spaces the way a plug sits in a socket, and it will cause a chemical reaction to happen. Now, it's a little bit simplistic. There's a few other things that happen, but basically, a hormone is like a plug. It sits in a socket. Essential fatty acids go to make or get converted into master hormones. Not hormones, master hormones. Now, what is a master hormone? A master hormone is a component that affects how the plug is going to hit the socket. So without these master hormones, the plug doesn't hit the socket as effectively. None of your hormones work as effectively. Not only that, but essential fatty acids are part of the outside part of a cell. It's called a cell membrane. And that membrane is composed of essential fatty acids. Without essential fatty acids in your diet, the cell membrane becomes dysfunctional, and once again, the plug can't fit into the socket because the cell membrane is out of shape. Thirdly, and this is very, very important, essential fatty acids are oxygen magnets. And this is why they're sitting in the outside part of a cell. Because as the essential fatty acid is sitting in the outside part of a cell, it's attracting oxygen to the cell. It's an oxygen magnet. Oxygen that's attracted to the outside part of a cell can be absorbed into a cell, and the body and the cell can use that oxygen for energy. Essential fatty acids act to trap oxygen, to localize oxygen near a cell so that cell can utilize the oxygen. Cancer can be created by suffocating, robbing a cell of oxygen. So essential fatty acids in the cell are the ways the cell protects itself from cancer. In fact, the most powerful strategy for protecting yourself from cancer is to make sure you're oxygenating cellularly through supplements like essential fatty acids and through the lungs and the respiratory tract by making sure you're breathing correctly, which is a whole other story. So essential fatty acids go to make master hormones. They go to make the cell membrane. They act like oxygen magnets. Tremendously important, and one of the most functional benefits of essential fatty acids is they can get you off of the French fries and get you off the fat.
Yeah, that's true.
So just with the first 2 chapters, bro, you've now lowered your sugar cravings, reduced your sugar cravings, reduced your cravings for fatty foods. Just the first 2 chapters, you've lost weight. Just the first 2 chapters. And we haven't even got to chapter 3, which is carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates get a bad rap. Everybody wants to be on low carb, right? Low carb diets. You need more carbohydrates than you need any other food group. In fact, roughly 60 60% or so of your calories should come from I shouldn't say that. 40% of your calories should come from carbohydrates. The standard, and everybody's going to be a little different, but the standard type of division of macronutrients are 40% carbohydrates, 30% protein, 30% fat. That's a good place to be. So most of your calories should come from carbohydrates, but they have to come from one kind of carbohydrate. And this is one of the most amazing, powerful foods on the planet. And the large bulk of your calories should be coming from this one type of food, and that is vegetables. Vegetables, 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 vegetables. So most of your calories have to come from carbohydrate, but not the carbohydrates that we're getting, vegetable carbohydrates. And you notice I didn't say fruits, right? I said vegetables, not fruits. The problem with fruits is fruits have been bred, genetically modified, not just recently in terms of genetic modification, but genetically modified for eons, for centuries really, to be super high in sugar and super high in fructose specifically, which is a very problematic sugar above and beyond regular sugar. Fructose has its own problems, and fruits are obviously high in fruit sugar, fructose. So you want the bulk of your caloric intake to come from calories that you get from vegetables. Vegetables, vegetables, vegetables. Now, there's a couple problems with vegetables. The first problem is a lot of the nutrients in vegetables that come with those carbohydrates are fatty and fat soluble. And if you have any problems with fat absorption, if you have any malabsorption issues, 30% of Americans have fat malabsorption problems, you're not going to get the benefits of those fatty nutrients. And those fatty nutrients are very protective against, protective from the sun and protective from toxicity in the environment. So without those fatty nutrients, they're called bioflavonoids and they're called carotenes, and you probably have heard some of these terms, phytosterols. These fatty compounds that are found in vegetables are supposed to be protecting us from the environment, protecting us from the sun, protecting us from toxins, protecting us from pollution. But if you're not absorbing your fats, you have an intestinal problem, you have Crohn's disease, celiac disease, you're not absorbing your fats on some level, what's going to end up happening is you're going to lose those nutrients, and you're going to be more sensitive to the sun, you're going to be more sensitive to skin cancer and other kinds of cancers, you're going to be more sensitive to environmental toxicities. So what you need to do with your vegetables is you need to mix them with oil. You always want to mix your vegetables with oil, and it's a good idea to slightly heat the vegetables in the oil. Not a lot of heat, but maybe slight steaming. What will end up happening is the nutrients, the fatty nutrients that are in the Brussels sprouts and the broccoli and the cauliflower will come out in the oil and make it easier for your body to absorb. So chapter 3, carbohydrates, should be mostly vegetables, as much as you can do vegetables, and it should be always mixed with fats. Mix your oils, your fatty acids, your essential fatty acids with your vegetables, and go varied on the vegetables. Easy on the beet and carrot. Everybody likes beet and carrot because they're super high in sugar. So easy on the beet and the carrot. Emphasize the bitter vegetables. Medicine and good stuff is always in the bitter vegetables. And you can make bitter vegetables more palatable by slightly steaming them because you release the sugars in the vegetables. All vegetables have sugars in them, but they're tied up and they can't really taste them until you slightly steam them. That's why onions have almost a sugary sweet taste once you start to cook them, or once you heat them a little bit. Same with Brussels sprouts and broccoli. So chapter 3 is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates should form the bulk of your caloric intake, but they have to be vegetable carbohydrates, and you can't possibly get enough vegetables. Vegetables for breakfast, vegetables for lunch, vegetables for dinner. Veggie juices are an unbelievably important strategy for dieters because you get all of these nutrients, easy to absorb, it's all broken up and pre-digested, and you don't have to go through some of the digestive problems that are associated with vegetable intake. By the way, cabbages and cabbage juice is an amazing, amazing medicinal-like compound, medicinal-like food substance for the digestive system. If you have ulcers, if you have any kind of digestive problems, cabbage juice is amazing, amazing stuff. All vegetables are amazing. Cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts are a woman's best friend because they're highly protective against female cancers. Yeah. All of those vegetables, cruciferous vegetables.
But I want to get back to the modern day because there's so many processed foods and the kind of carbs everybody's been eating. I mean, I followed, like you said, the first 2 chapters of this, but just getting on the wheys and the fats, and I personally have had a big transformation. Do you want to talk about that stuff right now? Or
about the kind of carbohydrates?
Do you want to finish your list? Or?
Well, no, this is good. The kind of carbohydrates people are eating. Because you and I were talking off air about how our political system, Our governmental system, the hierarchical system that lends itself to totalitarianism, is intimately connected with agriculture and farming. The first empire that we know of, the first empire in recorded history, was the Sumerian Empire, right?
Yeah.
The Sumerian Empire appeared out of nowhere, by the way. That's a whole other story, how that happened. But so the Sumerian Empire is the first empire in recorded history, and the Sumerian Empire became an empire because they were the first civilization that figured out how to farm and how to become big from farming. Now, why is hegemony and tyranny related to agriculture and related to farming? Well, farming's a lot of work, and it's hard to get people to do a lot of work. Not only that, but irrigation requires ditch digging, and so people had to dig ditches, and human beings aren't inclined to go dig ditches and to go farm if they don't have to. They had to be made to do that. So our political system of tyranny and our governmental system that's based on hierarchy and authority is intimately wed to this idea that people didn't want to farm, but they had to be compelled to farm. And once we had this compulsion into farming, then we figured out, we didn't have to move around as much. You could have civilizations, you could have towns, you could have cities. So it's in the interest of governmental structure, but it's not in the individual's interest. In the individual's interest, it's to find good sources of food and go to those kinds of food. In the interest of the country, in the interest of the system, agriculture plays a big role. And so we find that wherever, as soon as agriculture came, that's when civilization came, and that's when government came, and that's when political tyranny came.
Yeah, and it's interesting, you always see in Egyptian hieroglyphs, for instance, they pay taxes in grain.
Exactly. But who do they pay taxes to?
Yeah.
Exactly. They pay taxes to the government. The individual didn't need it. The individual was fine going and hunting a zebra once in a while, but we got convinced into thinking that our lives would be better off if we were farming and we had food that was local and we didn't have to go out and hunt and forage for food. But our health began to decline as soon as we started to farm, and our health didn't catch up until the turn of the 20th century when we got more protein in our diet. In the Middle Ages, you ever seen those? I don't know if I was telling you, I was telling somebody. In the Middle Ages, sometimes you go to a museum and they'll have little houses or little beds and they show you how people lived in the Middle Ages. The beds were really small, the houses were really small, people were 4'10" and 5'2", and they only lived to be 20 years old in the Middle Ages. Our Cro-Magnon ancestors were big, strong, muscular people. Our hunter-gatherer ancestors were 6 foot tall and muscular. And when archaeologists or anthropologists are looking at bones and they want to date the bones, they look at the bones and they see if the bones were weak or they see if the bones were strong. And if the bones were weak, they say, oh, grain-eating culture. And if the bones were strong, they say, oh, protein, meat-eating culture, hunter-gatherer cultures. So not only did our system of political tyranny emerge with the advent of agriculture, but our decline in health emerged as well. And it didn't catch up until very recently. In fact, arguably, it hasn't even caught up.
Yeah, why don't you talk about those founding father quotes? Because I always think about what Henry Kissinger said. Not only that food is a weapon, but that if you control the food, you control the population.
Isn't that amazing?
And yeah, not only does it go back to the history of agriculture, I mean, it was part of the history of the founding of this country.
That's right. Benjamin Rush and Thomas Jefferson, two of the founding fathers who signed the Declaration of Independence, warned against the centralization of medicine. Thomas Jefferson said, if you limit people's ability to access health freely, of their own volition, deciding what they want to do themselves, then you can control the people.
Can we pull up those quotes? Very interesting.
And Benjamin Rush said the same thing. Benjamin Rush, by the way, is a physician. And he warned about it.
Here's that quote.
This is Benjamin Rush. The Constitution of the Republic should make special provision for medical freedom. And he said this in 1787. This is amazing to me. To restrict the art of healing to one class will constitute the Bastille of medical science. All such laws are un-American. He says this in 1787. This is amazing. And despotic. Unless we put medical freedom in the Constitution, the time will come when medicine will organize into an undercover dictatorship and force people who wish doctors and treatment of their own choice to submit to only what the dictating outfit offers. This is what managed healthcare is. Exactly what Benjamin Rush warned against. Managed healthcare is when you go to HMO and they select what kind of medicines you get based on what kind of illness you have, based on what the book tells you. And that's what Obamacare is, Aaron. This is the promise of Obamacare. Managed managed healthcare where you go into some kind of institution, you walk in there, he takes your blood, the doctor takes your blood pressure, they look in a book and to see what kind of prescription should be dictated to you based on what your blood pressure reading is, based on what your cholesterol reading is, and you get that medicine. And by the way, that medicine is bought in bulk from some from some pharmaceutical company, and you get to have it, or the HMO gets to buy it cheap if they agree to dispense just that brand for your particular illness.